All right, our final question from Katie in Maumelle today. I'm 47 and recently inherited nearly $1 million in an IRA. I'm worried about tax implications and the right way to go about getting the money out within the 10-year withdrawal period. Got any advice? Well, Katie, you're aware of the 10-year withdrawal period, so that's obviously the cause for your question. Do want to tell everybody else a little bit, just kind of an overview. And we've talked about it on this show before, but if you're listening and you hear Katie say the 10-year withdrawal rule, what does that mean? Well, that's a recent change to the way inherited IRAs must be withdrawn. It came in 2020. So prior to that, you could do what's called a stretch. So if your father passed away, your mother passed away, and you received the funds, in Katie's case, almost $1 million, she could stretch that $1 million out through required minimum distributions based on her life expectancy. So it might be a pretty minimal amount, at least now, when she's 47 years old, and it would increase over time, which would be able to deflect some of the tax burden or defer some of the tax burden because she wouldn't be taking lump sums out. Well, the government changed that rule in 2020, and now in a next generation, if someone is 10 years or more younger than the person who died, they have to take it out. There are some exceptions to that, but generally speaking, they have to take it out in a 10-year time frame. So in essence, Katie has to take this money out, $1 million over a 10-year time frame. Now, we do want to talk about a few exceptions, though, because it's more than just the 10 years. Not everybody is included in this.
So this is, first of all, to clarify, we're talking about non-spouse beneficiaries. Spouses fall under a different set of rules. And Scott, you mentioned the 10-year gap. So let's talk about siblings. You might have siblings that are more than 10 years apart, but very often they're going to be within that 10-year range. So if you inherit something from a sibling, you're within 10 years of each other. And it doesn't have to be a sibling. That's just a good example. But if you're within 10 years of the decedent, then you do not have to fall under this 10-year rule that, as Scott said, started back in 2020. There's also some exceptions for disability or chronically ill people and for children who are under age 21. So beyond that, we want to talk about what do you do with this money? And, you know, Katie, as you get into you're in your late 40s now, as you're finishing this out into your 50s, you're going to be in some of your highest earning years, assuming that you're working. If that is the case, that is historically a very high earning time period for most people. And so you're receiving this money that is taxable through the inheritance on top of high earnings years. And so it's really important to work with your financial advisor and potentially even with your CPA to get a strategic plan on how you want to attack this. Generically, and this is, again, without knowing really what your situation is, you really want to take out a tenth of it the first year, a ninth of it the second year, and I know that sounds weird, instead of a tenth, but the way you work it down to zero is 1/10, 1/9, 1/8, etc., until you get down to the full in the last of the time period you're going to withdraw all of it. And that way you're spreading out these tax implications as much as possible. But then, Scott, we really want to cover, what do you do with it? Yeah. Because yes, you have to expose it to taxes, you have to pay the taxes on it, but you don't have to spend it. This money can then be utilized to really move you forward financially.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to the planning process, talking with an advisor to figure out where are the priorities here. Obviously, you can put some of this money back for your retirement, but before you get to that, is there some debt that needs to be wiped out? And we can help you work through what types of debt should be prioritized and whether it should be allocated, this money that you're withdrawing from the IRA. Is college a big priority for you, for your kids? We talked about debt. Maybe the mortgage is even close enough to being wiped out. And then you look at investing for retirement. And when you look at it as a holistic approach, you can kind of say, okay, if we wipe out the debt and take care of the kids' college, and this goes to retirement, what does that look like when you reach retirement from an income perspective? And we can shuffle the deck again and take a look at it in multiple ways. But the key is not to spend it, but you're going to have to pay the taxes on it, but you can start to prioritize what you do with the money. And if in the money that gets invested for retirement, you have some options there. Certainly, if you're eligible for a Roth IRA, I think you're not going to get a whole lot in that because there are pretty strict limits on how much you can put in a year's time. But if you're married, you can double that. So you could fully contribute to 2 Roth IRAs if you don't make too much money, because there are income restrictions on that. And then you can go to non-retirement brokerage or advisory accounts that can be taxable along the way, but still grow your dollars for retirement. And then there's also tax deferral vehicles as an option too, like annuities. You can put money into an annuity in lump sum that in essence turns the taxation on it into what would be just like an IRA. You would take money out at 59.5, so it would be appropriated for retirement. So there are lots of options there to get that money back in and grow back, in essence, Janet, what you might have lost in the taxation of the IRA.
I'm going to use my final thoughts to stay on Katie's question here for just a moment. From a parenting perspective, this is something that we've done for each of our kids, not every year, but from time to time. When they have worked and earned income, we've allowed them to keep that money for what they needed or wanted to do, but then we have put some of that money into, and not their dollars, but our dollars, we've put dollars into a Roth IRA for them because they had the earned income. They could have contributed, but they needed it for whatever else that they were doing in their teenage stage of life. But when you look at the difference, Katie, that can make for them long term, if you have all of your other ducks in a row, so to speak, and that is a possibility for you for your overall family financial planning, that is absolutely something you may want to consider if they have earned income, is to just make that contribution on their behalf.
Yeah, my final thought is we've mentioned the word plan a lot today. We mentioned the word plan a lot on this show, and I think you can become a little tone deaf to that when you listen to the show over a long period of time. But why is it important? When you think about, hey, we're entering into spring break next week, and I'm taking my kids on a vacation, and we've spent a little time planning that vacation.
Yep.
Now, it can be fun to just show up, but you're going to have to be prepared to not know what to expect, right? And it's the same for retirement. It's the same for any financial goal that you want to meet. Planning helps you understand what you're trying to accomplish better and gives you a path and a roadmap to get there. And I would just encourage everybody listening today, if you haven't built a retirement income plan, reach out to us here and get ready to go through the Gen Wealth Ready to Retire process. You can do that by just calling 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526 to set up your first appointment with a Gen Wealth financial advisor near you.